and Bill Bowkett, political commentator with Young Voices UK, who joins me in the studio. I mean, Times front page today, Johnson ready for strike stalemate to last months. That's one of the stories you want to discuss. But this is my problem. Boris has a spine made of jelly, in my opinion. He is obsessed with what people think of him. He's U-turned so many times that I'm surprised he doesn't need to sit down because he's so dizzy. And I feel like the only strategy that we can rely on him for, and this is only a potential, is to just shut up and do nothing while we all stomach it. Because he certainly won't do a Thatcher and say, right, I know I'm right. I know people are going to hate me for it, but I've got to stand firm, because he has no spine.
This Boris is not for turning.
Yeah, but that's all he is for. Yes. I mean, that's all he's ever done.
Well, U-turning specifically.
Yes.
I mean, in this particular instance, when it comes to the R&T union strikes, is that proposals have been put on the table, a compromise, you can say, because frankly, you know, Mick Lynch, the General Secretary's demands...
Odious man.
It's absurd. He's asking for a 7-8% increase in people's wages, and also for better working conditions. The government said that's not possible because we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, the hike of inflation.
But also, just to jump in, he also objects to changes to working practices. He keeps going on the TV saying they want to close every single ticket office across the whole of the UK. Well, the devil on that is in the detail. If they're saying we're closing ticket offices, but we're going to have an attendant with an iPad there who will be attending the gate, who will be able to sell tickets from the iPad, but the ticket office itself, rather than sat behind the window, I wouldn't have an objection to that. But he's making it sound like they're going to board them all up, close them all, and say, you know, bye-bye. And I don't know if that's the case.
And I think also there just seems to be a lack of, like, amiable solutions to this. I mean, so you've got the emergency legislation that's going to be going through Parliament where agency workers will step in place. But there's the iFront page said that's not going to mitigate the effects of strike
the problem
action.
is that Mick Lynch said last night, again, of course, he would say this, but he said last night that it was... you know, some of the agency staff might be able to do the cleaning and things like that, but they're not going to be able to operate the signalling and the control rooms and do the driving and things like that. And that's because the unions have never allowed anyone else to be trained to do those things in case of this eventuality. So they've sort of got it all sewn up. And you understand why, because they're trying to protect their own interests, but where do we end up?
Where's the ordinary working person?
Exactly.
Where's the school student that has to go in for their GCSE and A-level exams? Where is, you know, a vulnerable individual that has to go and have a key healthcare check? Where is a worker on minimum wage have to get to who can't afford a car, can't afford to drive there because of the price of petrol, diesel?
There was an oncologist on Good Morning Britain yesterday morning saying, I've had patients whom I've had to cancel their chemo and their vital cancer treatment because they can't get to the hospital. And Mick Lynch said, I don't accept that. I mean, I don't accept that. And Good Morning Britain said, so this could potentially mean that people who need hospital treatment are going to die.
Yeah.
I don't accept that. An oncologist said it. I don't accept that. We give 2 weeks' notice on strikes. So essentially, if you've got cancer, you've got a fortnight in order to get your treatment. I mean, it's the most spectacular arrogance.
And the other thing also is that because there's only 3 days of strike, it's still affecting the entire network throughout the entire week. It's basically a week-long strike. People stopped travelling on Mondays. They stopped running services, you know.
Yeah, it's Monday to Sunday.
Monday to Sunday. And even on today, for instance, which is not an official strike day, network rail services are going to be ending by about 6:30.
And also the trains, because some ran and some didn't, on even the normal day, the trains won't be in the right places, the staff won't be in the right places. You know, heaven forbid they would have to get to the right places, because that probably involves another half an hour of work. So you're going to end up in a situation where you're quite right. The Monday strike affects Tuesday. The Monday affects the Tuesday strike.
Yeah.
The Tuesday strike then goes on to Wednesday. It's just going to get
worse and worse.
That's why they deliberately spaced it out by those 3 days, knowing that they would actually give the maximum 6 days, 7 days of disruption. It's an absolute
it's
nightmare.
Absolute hell. And I think because is in the Times front page, the government argues that people's ability to work remotely has made it harder for rail unions to hold the country to ransom. And also, you must remember that the industry itself has been given £16 billion in state assistance since the coronavirus pandemic began, you know, in the hope that it would recover, but it hasn't. Passenger numbers are just not the same as it was. More people are working
about 11%.
from home. It's 11, exactly.
In London, they're down about 25%, and the subsidy so far has been £16 billion this year. Not one rail worker lost their job or a day of pay as a result of COVID.
And ministers believe that they've made a reasonable proposal, a 3% pay rise, but also 2,000 jobs being cut. But the unions aren't going to accept that. So
and that's across both TfL and
across the entire industry, essentially.
And they are essentially saying as well that they're going to try and not make as many of those compulsory as well. And so, unfortunately, I cannot think of another business where you don't need to sometimes restructure or look at things. Nick Lynch announced the London date for striking. Remember, there was one earlier this month as well, before they'd even negotiated with TfL. Before they'd even sat down. TfL said, look, we're thinking of making these changes to pensions and everything. Right, we're striking. And he was on with Andrew Neil, and Andrew Neil said, well, why have you announced the strikes? Well, because they announced their intent to change things. Well, you don't know what they're going to change yet.
No, and they're going to do it in the most deliberate moments. You remember when they threatened, to walk out at Euston Station during the Jubilee celebrations. Yeah, they're just trying to be as disruptive as they can be.
And the fact that as well, I mean, I don't know what coffin that they've managed to find Arthur Scargill in, Dracula of strikes. But they've resurrected him somehow, put some sort of...
He was on the picket line, wasn't
I know.
He?
He's back. I don't know. I haven't heard that name in years. He is back, Arthur Scargill. The worst example of militant striking that you could possibly get. And he's back, and it's unbelievable. I'm just telling you something, Bill. And this is very, very serious. If anything affects me seeing Diana Ross at the O2 on Friday...
On Friday?
On Friday.
Wow.
So...
How exciting is that?
So Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday are the strikes.
Yes.
So when is it all going to unwind? When is it all going to wind down?
I had to get the bus here. And I live in North Greenwich, right near the O2, and it's an hour long, so it's not going to be a fast journey.
It's not going to be a fast...
And it's going to be packed as well.
Well... What is this bus you speak of? What is this mode of transport?
I think it's the 177.
Actually, in fairness, buses are all right. I get a lot of buses, and I quite like buses.
Yeah.
But the problem that we have, if being very self-indulgent and selfish here, but these are the problems that people are facing. If things are winding down quite early, is that going to affect people being able to get to a concert at the O2 the night before on the Friday? What time do I have to leave? Do I have to go there now?
You'll have to just plan it way in advance. Even though it's happening with Glastonbury Festival. People in Glastonbury are having to sleep in the car parks because they have to get there early as a result of strike action. They can't travel on the day that they want to, all the way down to Somerset. So well, the producer of this show normally, Harry, who's not here today, he went last night to spend the night in somewhere on the way. I don't know. It's out of London. How am I going to know? Yeah.
And he has said, and it's fair play, he's being very pragmatic about it. He just said, look, if it takes a day to get there, if we have to sit in the car, we're going to make it part of the fun. It's going to be part of the journey because we have no other option, really.
No.
And it's true. That is how you're going to have to think. Hey, join the conversation. I mean, are we talking rubbish about these strikes being absolutely awful? Do they have a point? Let's do some of the tweets on this, actually. Peter says workers should only be allowed to strike 1 day a week, not 3 days, like this RMT lynch mob are doing this week. Well, it's the Mick Lynch mob, isn't it? Cristo, not blaming Boris for everything, says Les. But mismanagement and his net zero activism led to closing fracking wells and the Green Levy, closing the economy for 2 years and printing money fueled inflation. Boris is incompetent and a socialist, and socialism destroys economies and fuels inflation. Well, I do agree that Boris is I've said it before, I'll say it again, Jeremy Corbyn in a fat suit. But and I can't stand him as Prime Minister. However, in fairness to him, I agree with some of what you've said there. We have been left with energy insecurity and more volatile to external conditions as a result of net zero, as a result of the technology not being there. And I think that you're right that the inflation has been partially fueled by the COVID printing of money. However, the inflation that we have at the moment, and many economists have said this, it's what's it called? There's a term for it. It's not demand-based inflation. It's sort of external inflation for the country. There is a term for it. It's something push. There's demand pull and something push inflation, and it's. I think it might even be just. Anyway, what it is it's inflation that is created, and this is why it's so difficult to deal with, because it's inflation that is created by external factors. It's not. It would be so much easier to deal with where you just squeeze the money supply if it was inflation based just on too much money in the economy, too much wage growth, and too much of all of that. But we have the Ukraine situation. We have, which has been a massive knock-on effect. The Ukraine situation has knocked on for food prices. The Ukraine situation has knocked on for energy prices. Those are external things. Now, our insecurity with energy and food here in the UK certainly has exacerbated it, but you can't put all of it at Boris's door, as much as we might like to, because there are external factors beyond the UK's borders that have created some of this
strike action
situation
as well, to be fair.
Yeah, the strike action.
I saw one statistic where I think it would decrease GDP by 0.3 to 0.4%, just these 3 days of strike action.
Wow. That's a nightmare, isn't it? OK, when we come back, we'll do some of the other stories. We might leave strikes for a while, including, well, you will not believe a story regarding all you can eat, which won't be there anymore. And that's something that affects me a lot, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk about that in a moment. Right here, live from the Talk Radio studio, it's Talk TV. Let's talk about another big story today. And I think that this is an important story.
Cost of living related.
It is cost of living related, and I think that if it were any other story, it would make many, many more front pages. The Harvester. Have you ever been to a Harvester before? Harvester. You won't remember that advert, will you? There used to be an advert on TV where they...
Which one?
Where, for the Harvester, and the waitress would say during the advert, "Hello, have you ever been to a Harvester before?" Harvester are getting rid of what?
Well, they're getting rid of the free salad bar. They're not getting rid of the salad bar completely, but they're ditching its famous all-you-can-eat salad, which is just the worst news on the planet.
But
price of foods.
But also, are we eating too much salad? Who is this person at the salad bar piling up their salad? I mean, does that mean we're eating too much salad?
No, I don't think it's people are eating too much salad. I mean, we can talk about obesity in this country if we want to, but I don't think this isn't the problem here. The problem here is just, as you've rightly mentioned, about the price of food, about external factors like the war in Ukraine. It's as simple as that. So what's going to happen now is the restaurant chain will still offer the option with meals, but diners are banned from loading up bowls themselves, and instead a member of staff will have to load it yourself.
So do they still keep the salad bar out then, but the member of staff goes up?
They'll do it.
But then what if I don't want many crispy bits? What if I don't want the bacon crispy?
You have to just be very specific to them.
But I don't trust them to get it right.
You know, this was happening before this story even came out, because during the pandemic, because of having to socially distance, they had a measure in place where you couldn't go up to the salad bar and choose your own stuff. They had to do it for you.
But what if
I had to be very specific. I was like, I want lots of bacon bits, I want croutons, I want this dressing.
I love that you so that is the least salad I've ever heard in my life. You just want bacon bits, croutons and dressing.
No, I'll get the lettuce, get some sun-dried...
That's just a bag of crisps with some mayo on.
Get some lettuce and sun-dried tomatoes. It is delicious, though, and that's why. It's addictive.
It is. I remember when I was younger, probably contributed to where I am today, but they used to do an all-you-can-eat pizza at Pizza Hut as well.
Oh, yeah, they still do.
Do they still do that?
But it's very expensive. It's actually better to just buy.
It used to be when I was starting. It used to be $4.99.
No.
Yeah,
I remember going there as a child all the time.
Yeah, you used to go and you'd wait for a fresh pizza to come out, and you'd be like, "Oh my god!" And then you'd just
More
more pizza. And it's actually nice because it's fresh.
It's like
one that's been stagnant with congealed cheese that's been sitting there for a month, which I still ate.
Yes.
Okay, now the police. They're understaffed, underfunded. They're having a terrible, torrid time of things.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that they've got their priorities right.
Yeah. Police having to investigate Joe Lycett, who is a brilliant comedian.
So Joe Lycett, the guy who does Channel 4 shows, really funny. I love
Live at the Apollo.
Live at the Apollo.
He's great.
He is really good. I do like Joe Lycett. What has happened with Joe Lycett?
So he was doing a stand-up set. He made the joke, and this is probably not the best subject to talk about on 6:15 in the morning, but referred to a donkey's genitalia. It doesn't actually say what the joke was.
No, it doesn't. None of the papers say what the joke was, do they?
Well, it's good publicity for Joe because the show runs on to September. But anyway, so he made that joke. A member of the audience clearly was vexed by it and actually reported that joke to the police because they were offended that much, or they found it offensive or offensive to other people, and they closed the matter straight away.
But it was about, what was the joke about?
It was
about a donkey's what?
A donkey's genitalia.
A donkey's genitalia?
Yeah.
That's such an odd thing to be offended about. Like, I wouldn't agree with it.
But the context also matters here. We don't know what the joke is, and we don't know, what the intent was. But at the end of the day, it's comedy. But
also, at least I can process in my mind the logic. As a big old gay fella myself, if there was a joke about gay people, I wouldn't agree with going to the police about it, but at least I could process in my mind, well, perhaps a gay person might be offended by that, so I could process it, I could understand it. But unless you are the donkey in this,
donkeys have no feet.
Donkeys who is offended by this? Well, I've got a donkey at home, and I think that you've been very, very harsh on that donkey. I'm very, very angry. Or the donkey itself was in the audience and said, well, actually, I'm sorry, my private parts aren't anything like Joe Lycett's.
No, but clearly he tweeted about how it was one of the best jokes he's ever written, and he's firmly and proudly in the show. And like I said, it runs till September. So if you really want to hear that joke, then go.
I'm fascinated to know what the joke is, but I'm also fascinated to know who was offended on the behalf of a donkey's private parts. That to me is more interesting than the police part of the story, because I'd love to know who it was. Okay. Standing on one leg, what's this all about?
This is an interesting story. So people over the age of 50 who are unable to stand on one leg for 10 seconds are at double risk of dying in the next decade. It was a study by a global study team, including Bristol Medical School, and it showed that of 1 in 5 people failed to pass the test. With an inability to do more, less than doubling it.
Over 50 might die in the next 10 years.
But yes, some 17.5% of those who failed died in the study period.
They died during the study?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, that is bad. I mean, you have to stand on one... Can we do the camera? If I go back, can I stand on one leg? I'm not over 50, by the way.
No.
But what do I just do? Just stand on one leg?
What was it? I'm trying to look at the age group while you're trying to attempt that.
You're only going to see my midriff, ladies and gentlemen, but what a midriff it is. All right, so, can you time me?
Yes, I will.
All right.
3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3.
Can you see my foot's off the ground?
6, 7, 8, 9. There you go.
I did it. Look, I can even
Simple
do
as
this.
that.
I can even do this on one leg. See, that means, I might carry some weight, but I'm a bit fit, There you go.
Well, you're going to live a long life.
I don't know if I want to be honest. Honestly, they'll tax me into I'm paying tax longer. Bill, thank you. Thank you for showing to me that I'm not going to die in the next 10 years. I appreciate that very, very much.